Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm Adam Meyerson, President of the Philanthropy Roundtable, and thank you so much for joining us. The great Jewish theologian Maimonides said that the highest form of charity is to give a man a job so he doesn't need charity anymore. And the subject of our conference, workforce development, has been a great, it's a crucially important issue for the future of our country and for the future of our economy. And we're so delighted to be here at the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas and to have as our keynote speaker Rob Kaplan, its CEO and its president and CEO. Rob has had just an amazing career. He was vice chairman of Goldman Sachs, professor of leadership at Harvard Business School. He's head of the Project ALS, which is doing phenomenal breakthrough research on that devastating neurodegenerative disease. And he's also a co-chairman of an amazing model for philanthropy that's Draper Richards Kaplan Foundation. It takes the Silicon Valley venture capital approach to philanthropy. And if you don't know that organization, I recommend you look at drkaplanfoundation.org. Great, very interesting model. Rob is going to be interviewed by Matt Rose, who is the chairman of the Dallas Fed, and he's also the executive chairman of BNSF, which is one of the world's very largest freight railways. Matt is on many boards, as well as the Dallas Fed, the American Enterprise Institute, Texas Christian University, and AT&T, among others. He's joined by Lisa Rose. Can you stand up, Lisa? Lisa is founder of an incredible community, the Gatehouse, at Grapevine near DFW Airport. And it is a supportive living community for women and children who are coming out of crisis. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage Rob Kaplan and Matt Rose.
Thank you, Adam. Good afternoon, everybody. Rob, somebody's done a great job of writing down all these questions for us. Do you want to go by those? You want me to just fire away?
Whatever you want, fire away. Thank you all for being here. And Adam, thank you for being here and your organization. I'm learning more about it during lunch, but listen, you can hear from my background, I have great respect for nonprofit leaders. Problems of the world are going to need to be addressed by nonprofit leadership. It can be a thankless job. I'm certain can tell you it's a lonely job. And so whether you're a board member or a leader of one of these organizations, I respect what you do and thank you for your leadership. Country needs you.
All right, well, let's start with the first question. It's not on the list. You know, when you come to a thing called Philanthropy Roundtable that denotes giving, back, giving money, giving time, doing something like that. And yet one of the things you are really involved with, which is a little outside of what people would perceive your job at the Fed here to be, is in early literacy.
Right.
So how does your passion on early literacy, and what do you see there in terms of developing the skill set for the future and this whole concept of philanthropy, and how's that all weave together?
Okay. And we're fortunate here we have Elfrida Norman, Roy Lopez, and probably other people from our group that leads the charge on this. Here's the reason we picked up, and we've done a lot of work on early childhood literacy. Everybody talks about the need to improve education in the United States. And they say secondary education needs to be better, college readiness. That's all true. College affordability. The problem is a lot of the research we've seen, and some we do at the Fed, suggests that a meaningful percentage of at-risk kids are starting first grade, behind grade level, and the studies show if you start behind when you get to first grade, you never catch up. And you could have great improvements in secondary education, and it's not going to matter. And so we believe that we've got to focus on 0 to 5, particularly for at-risk kids. I coincidentally, but this isn't the reason why, I used to be on the board of, and I used to read to a child during his lunch hour when I was at Goldman Sachs for many years. It's something called Everybody Wins, and I took 150 people from Goldman with me one day a week. So I'm a big believer in all the studies that show if you read to a small child as early as possible, you got a heck of a much better chance that they're going to start school at grade level or better. And it'll ease the burden. And the reason we talk about it so much is I think everybody overlooks it. They jump, and we've got to start there. But if you're going to go at it, it can't be done by it's going to have to be done by nonprofits and philanthropists to get at it. I'm not sure how many government programs or local programs to really get at it, but that's the reason we're on this.
Good, thanks. So let's tick through the economy. You see an enormous amount of data that comes in, and just start with how you believe the economy is with all the various, what I call indicators that are out there, from workforce participation to productivity to output, the whole bit.
So on the positive side, if you look at the short term, i.e. 2018, economy's strong, undeniable, got lots of stimulus. We think GDP growth, our estimate here, and it may turn out to be low, is somewhere between 2.5% and 2.75%. That's how much we're going to grow. Healthier growth than we've had. The unemployment rate is down to 3.9%. Other measures of labor slack are tightening. And so the short run looks positive. You've heard me say this. The concerning thing to me is after we get past the short run. The medium term, for me, is concerning. And why is that? First of all the stimulus we have this year will start to wear off, the impact of it. And so it'll have a little less effect in 19, a little less effect in 20. And number two, there are structural drivers that are slowing growth. One is aging demographics in the United States, which means slowing workforce growth. For those who follow these statistics, the participation rate in the United States right now, labor participation rate, 15 to 64 that is either working or looking for work, is 62.8%. And that's an alarming number because back in 08, 07, it was 66%. That's a huge decline. And the problem is, we believe at the Dallas Fed most of the decline is due to aging. People are aging out of the workforce to the point where over the next 10 years, we think that percentage is going to get down to 61%. So the trends are, this is a problem. By the way, it's a problem in almost every advanced economy, really bad in Japan, really challenging in Germany. So that's number one. Number two, productivity has been sluggish. Productivity growth has been sluggish. Then the question is why? It doesn't make any sense with all this investment, technology, and everything else. And I think industry and businesses are far more productive today. It's working. The problem is 46 million workers out of 160 million workforce have a high school education or less. And technology, we believe, is having, at the Dallas Fed, is having the effect of causing their jobs to either be restructured or eliminated. And it's not that they won't find another job in a tight labor market. They'll find another job, but it'll be at a productivity level from here to here. Call center is going to, most of those jobs are going to get disrupted out of existence. And I could list 15 other jobs, and we aren't retraining people fast enough. Joe May, I see in the audience, as you heard before this, I understand, does a superb job on job retraining. We are doing better, but not fast enough. And then back to this early childhood literacy, education levels are lagging. We're 25th out of 35 OECD countries. We've let it slip. And if our research shows that if you could just improve that ranking even on math, science, and reading, that would improve productivity if you could improve skill training. So anyhow, those are two big issues that are headwinds. GDP is made up of growth in the workforce and growth in productivity. And then the third issue, all this stimulus which we're enjoying, feels good on the way up, but now government debt to GDP is historically high. And we're starting to believe that we can't keep leveraging up. And we're late cycle, and we're going to start to have to moderate that growth. That could be a headwind. When you wrap all that up together, we think growth next year will be below 2.5%, and by 2020, somewhere about We think we're going to gravitate to 1.75% to 2%, which for those who watch the stuff, you would find horrifying, given that's what we were growing before all this stimulus. And you'd say that can't be true, that we're going to grow at the same level, but now we're more highly leveraged than we were. But that is exactly, if I had to put an estimate, I hope I'm wrong. And the good news is economists, I'm not an economist, but the good news is economists are wrong a lot, so that's positive. But my own view is if I had to make a best judgment, I think we're going to get back down to potential growth of 1.75% to 2% by 2020, except we're going to be more highly leveraged. That's what concerns me.
So it's a weird mismatch that we have right now. I mean, it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. American business can't find the workforce,
Right.
So we automate, then we
right.
don't have the jobs for the existing workforce we have.
Right.
So, I mean, I do this in my own life. I mean, we're having trouble finding technically qualified laborers, machinists, pipe fitters, things like that can, pass a drug test. That's all we're asking them to do is pass a drug test. That's really hard, and show up for work every day. And so we were in a meeting on Monday, and we were talking about how do we automate these processes to get out of the work. And it just feels like we've got this labor mismatch. We don't do a very good job in this country. I mean, we have a hard enough time with early learning, middle, through high school, and then we really do a terrible job of retraining an older workforce.
Right. So there's a few issues. I agree with everything you said, and here are the problems with it. Number one, worker mobility in this country right now is historically low. And there's lots of theories as to why, but the reality is it's low, which means if you're a worker in a city like Dallas or somewhere else that loses your job, you're going to probably have to find a way to get retrained locally and then find a new job locally. And this is why worker skill training, and by the way, our estimate is there's well over 1 million jobs in this country that are open, skilled jobs, can't find workers. Half of all small businesses today in the survey say they cannot find skilled workers to fill the jobs. Everybody thinks the problem in the United States there aren't enough jobs. There are plenty of jobs. Can't find the workers, as Matt was saying. And why this is a challenge is 2 reasons. One, so then if you're lucky enough to have somebody like Joe May at Dallas Community College, he is backward integrated, gone out and interviewed businesses. El Paso's done a great job too. Odessa's done a great job. The Dade County in Florida's done a great job. And they've created these skills and these training, and it's helping. And by the way, it's a lot easier for us to track businesses because they know we've got a great community college churning out skilled workers. But then the other point is, pretend you're 46 years old and you've lost your job. It's great to say, go get retrained. Well, psychologically, the thought of, I'm going to get to start over at the bottom, sit in the classroom, not make an income while I'm in the classroom and get retrained, I think we're finding psychologically it's easy to say you should do it, but worker adaptability, and so every student, at least I've had, or we're going to have to be telling next generations, I'm sorry, you're going to get fired more often, you're going to fire people more often, your industry's going to get disrupted, and you're going to have to be more adaptable than we were. And you're going to have to be willing to get retrained. But I think psychologically and emotionally, we're finding people are struggling to say, yeah, I'm going to make the 1 year, 18-month leap to go do that. It's hard when you're in your 40s. And I sympathize with that, right? It's hard.
So pick one or the other. We hear a lot about outsourcing of American jobs. And then we hear a lot about automation.
Right.
So which has had a harsher impact to the American worker?
So the bottom line is outsourcing and globalization disrupted hundreds of thousands, if not millions of US jobs 15 years ago, maybe 10 to 15 years ago. If your job in this country has been disrupted in the shoe industry and lots of others, that would have been a fair criticism 10 to 15 years ago, and we didn't do a very good job helping those workers that lost their jobs adapt. Roll forward to today, our analysis and all the research I've seen suggests, including by Harvard Business School, suggests that the bulk of job disruption today is not happening from globalization or trade or outsourcing, but instead from the technology automation we were just discussing. The problem is in our national dialogue, it's being attributed to outsourcing, and we're saying we're going to stop something where that bomb went off 15 years ago. We're going to defuse that bomb. Already went off, and instead we should be focusing on accepting that this is why we're losing jobs, and let's beef up retraining. And so my concern is if we don't analyze this correctly, we won't make the right policy decisions, and so far, I think we're slow in adapting to this.
Yeah. So tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to be in the White House on a panel talking about AI.
You right?
Autonomous AI. And so when you think about autonomous AI, job productivity, you know, my head hurts to think, on one hand, we don't have enough workers. On the other hand, AI is going to just take out so many millions and millions of jobs, right?
Right.
So what role does public policy have, like, to protect the millions of truck drivers from total automation to force those people onto the unemployment rolls?
Right.
And how should our policymakers balance those two issues to provide a society that allows for unskilled people like to drive a truck?
Right. So this is a tough one, and this involves a value judgment, but I'll go ahead and make it. So obviously there should be good social safety net. We could probably agree on that. You know, if somebody wants to work or if they've been thrown out of their job, there should be some type of social safety net. My own view, and this is not research driven, this is my opinion. So AI, machine learning, and technology-enabled disruption has been going on for years. And the churning, I mean, I think the latest estimate I saw, the US economy, let's throw out rough numbers, creates 12 million jobs a year, destroys 10 million jobs a year. So job destruction is massive. It's been going on like that for years, and somehow we still are down at an unemployment rate on the bright side of 3.9%, although I think a lot of these folks that have been thrown out of the workforce have claimed disability on opioid issues. So it's creating a lot of emotional carnage. So my own view is, what should we be doing? We need to beef up. I personally think the solutions are probably not to go overboard protecting people from that happening, but to improve and invest more in human capital in this country. So when it does happen, you've gotten a better secondary education, early childhood literacy, secondary education. The answer may not be college for everybody. We beef up skill training and make it readily available, and we prove awareness of it. And then and I think we've got to I'd have a national campaign to do all those things and be talking about it every single day. And I have a funny feeling, even though this is going to destroy millions of jobs, we're going to create millions of jobs that are related. The problem is all our research shows you're going to need more training to do those jobs. We're more of an information economy. The only bright silver bullet, which I was just with somebody from Intel the other day and we were talking about this, it is possible that AI, artificial intelligence, will advance enough, and maybe there's a lag where it will be more accessible. Maybe there'll be a day where you can use that artificial intelligence, not necessarily have to go for as extensive skill training, because it will be so accessible to you that we'll find a way to get people back into these industries. They may get paid less though, because it's going to be but they can use AI, and so technological innovation, it's possible, may help address this, but I think we're years away from that. Right now, we're going to have to do the hard job of training, developing our human capital much more. That's what I think.
It does feel like, though, I agree, the AI has been around for a decade at least, if not 15 years. But it feels like we are
We're accelerating.
on acceleration,
We are.
and now we are getting into human adaptability of AI. That's going to accelerate even more of the job destruction.
I agree. Jobs that would have been unthinkable will be thinkable. And so a question I always ask is, what's causing it? Because you see the acceleration, we see it every day. And I think the cloud, distributed computing, and just, technology gets better and better and better and better, and learning, and it's exponential. Human beings are not keeping up with it, but worse, our investment in human capital isn't keeping up with it. That's the part I'm disappointed about.
All right, so we better read some questions since somebody worked so hard on these things. While
All right.
while I'm getting to the questions, why don't you tell the people how much money you got in this joint?
Well, you know, it's funny. It actually turns out to be a little more than I thought. That's funny you say that. It's double-digit billions. How's that? And the double-digit may be closer to 30 than to 10. Depends on the day of the week, though, hour of the day. How's that? Exciting, yes? But this is why we have so many law enforcement people here. You may wonder, it's not, you'd think it was to protect you and us. Actually, no. It's because we got a lot of money here.
So what do you make of Texas? I mean, I just saw the numbers. Texas grew faster than any other state in the nation.
Amazing.
And yet, we've got problems here, right?
We do.
With all this growth.
You bet.
And we come back to education, and you come from one of the greatest teaching, learning educations in the country. Not to characterize people, but the Northeast in general seems to do education a lot better than we do in Texas.
Although we're getting a lot better. So here's the thing about Texas. So I mentioned one of the biggest problems I worry about is aging demographics, slowing workforce growth, except in Texas. And there's maybe 5 or 6 or 7 states that are an exception. Our population and our workforce is growing. Why? We're stealing people, basically, from other states. Migration of people and firms to this state, including you, I guess me a little bit. We're both migrants, right? In its way, not immigrants. Migration, we are growing 1% faster than the rest of the nation, and this migration trend is alive and well to the point where, I mean, the out-year estimates, I think we got 29 million people in Texas today, 22 and a half 10 years ago. We think we're on our way into the mid-40s. I mean, amazing. And so the long and short of it, that's the rocket fuel here. Number 2 is energy. While it's down below 10% of GDP, it's a very important afterburner for this economy. And I don't need to tell you, with oil prices higher, we are chugging away. And 70% of U.S. oil production is in the Permian, and we've got the Permian. Now, to Matt's point, every study, though, I've seen suggests this growth is creating access to health care, highest number of uninsured in the country here, not something to be proud of. Widening wealth inequality, air quality, big problem, real threat to the state, infrastructure, availability of water, housing affordability. These are big issues. The one thing I've been impressed about the state of Texas, I've noticed, is you can get business leaders and leaders generally in a room, and I've been in that room several times, and the Fed helps on these studies, and people can get around and talk to the legislature and the governor and say, here are the things we need to do. But the studies I've seen suggest we've got a number of challenges. The good news is, unlike Illinois and Connecticut and lots of other states, we actually have the money to address these challenges. So we can fix any problem we face because it's a very wealthy place, and we've got the people. We've got the most valuable thing you can have, workforce growth. If you're in a state, which are about 30, 35 states in this country, where workforce growth is going like this, it affects pension funds, it affects everything, ability to provide services. We've got going like this. So we'll solve all these problems if we talk about them and have the will to do it, but my guess is we will.
Why don't we open it up to the audience for some questions, and then...
I guess I'll say one last comment. So with everything I said, and I'd be remiss in not saying, this is why I'm so involved in it, I know Matt's very involved in it, some of these problems will be solved by business, some will be solved by the government, some will be solved by public officials generally and nonprofits. But by and large, in my view, the role of the nonprofit world and innovation and it's stepping into these problems is going like this, okay? Which is why I do the venture philanthropy firm, which is also why we do so much at the Dallas Fed to be involved in these areas and support all of you in this room, because problems that used to be addressed by the government or maybe even business 25 years ago, and they're probably gonna have to be solved by us, you, in this room. And that's a trend, and it's critical. If you don't get involved or step into these things, they're probably not gonna get solved, and we're gonna grow more slowly and have a less prosperous economy.